7-1, baby. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to episode of Packcast, the podcast where you're not a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and the Green Bay Packers continue to lead the NFC North by knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs 31-24 in a very, very exciting Sunday night football game in which I no longer have a voice and my blood pressure is absolutely through the roof. But in actuality, this game was a close game, and I expected it to be, even with the absence of Patrick Mahomes, who is rumored to be back at full strength at the Titans in 2 weeks. I'm hoping he can come back against the Vikings. You know, that would be a little bit helpful. But Rodgers tonight played absolutely masterful, and this was another game that was dominated by Aaron Jones. So let's jump into some stats. So Aaron Rodgers tonight, 23 for 33, 303 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Got away from the running game early, and seemed to be a one-dimensional team pretty early on too. And then there was like the slow emergence of the run game that started to come back. Rodgers should have thrown one pick. There was one he literally threw right to the defender, Breland actually, and he dropped the ball. But there was one throw in particular. There's a couple throws that were incredible tonight, but there was one throw in particular, the Jamal Williams touchdown, in which he was getting tackled and looked like he threw it away. I was pissed because I thought he threw it away and hit Jamal Williams in the back of the end zone, who was able to get both feet down in an absolutely disgusting throw, showing that Aaron Rodgers is still one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL today. Aaron Jones had an incredible evening, 13 for 67 on the ground, and 7 receptions for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely incredible game for Aaron Jones, who truly is a difference maker when he is on the field. Besides that, you had Savage obviously making his return tonight, who was needed. He had a team-high 6 tackles. Zadarius Smith had 2 sacks. Our offensive line gave up 5 sacks in a game where the Chiefs were missing their starting left tackle and their starting left guard. I thought that Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith were absolutely going to feast on Matt Moore, but it was actually the complete opposite. Our offensive line got banged up a little bit, but was also having Rodgers get constantly under pressure. And there's a couple times where Rodgers just hung on to the ball way too long as well. But for the most part, Matt Moore played pretty efficient football. And if you're Andy Reid and you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you couldn't have been happier with how he played. Went 24 for 36, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns. McCoy was their leading rusher, 9 for 40, had 0 touchdowns, but had a big lost fumble. They got away from the run game early on, too. Tyreek Hill was held to only 76 yards. Felt like a whole lot more, though. Kelsey, only 4 receptions for a little over 60 yards and 1 touchdown. And for considering all the weapons that they have on that Chiefs team, it doesn't matter if it's Mahomes or if it's Moore throwing the ball, the Packers defense needed to be ready for them. And there was times where it was like, wow, we can't stop a cold. But if you look at the overall stats, we did a pretty good job on defense. The defense was put in a couple nasty spots. For example, in the beginning of the game, in which the Chiefs started on their own 30-yard line, and we wound up getting a big stop, and they missed a field goal. That was really, really big. But the defense did, we blew a lead. We had a 14-point lead in the first quarter. Then they scored 17 unanswered points in the second quarter. We only scored 3 to tie it up in the third, and then we were able to walk away with it in the fourth. And so the defense wasn't amazing tonight. Was a little bit sloppy, and this was going to be a completely different game if Patrick Mahomes played, obviously, because he's a tremendous talent. And while I do mourn the fact that I don't get to see them on Sunday Night Football, I may not be able to see them until 2023 unless they meet in the Super Bowl. You know, the Arrowhead is still a very tough place to play, but the Packers were still able to walk away with the W, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. So we're 7-1 halfway through the season, still sitting on top of the NFC North after teams like the Bears lost again, you know, because kicks and things don't go through uprights in Chicago. But we're able to stay ahead of the Vikings. We have the Chargers next week. Hopefully we have Davante Adams back. And, you know, people are hitting me up about the receiver thing again. And while our receivers didn't really show up a whole lot tonight, you know, Aaron Rodgers was able to spread the ball around. Guys made plays. Lazard made some plays. MVS made a couple. Geronimo really was kind of kept out of the game. But we've had 4 games now without Davante Adams, and in 3 of those, we have scored over 30 points. I mean, like, that's impressive. And so while I understand you're like, hey, like, we might need a receiver or we need someone that we can rely on more, we're doing all of this with the talent that we have. And again, they're going to develop more from this. We're going to get Davante back and make that offense even more explosive. And having Davante back is not only going to increase Aaron Rodgers' stats, it's going to increase the other receivers' stats as well. Because you're going to have guys who are going to be committing to covering Davante Adams, and that's going to leave guys like MVS, Kumaro, Allison, etc. to be left open. But I think one of the most impressive things that I've seen thus far is how versatile our backs have been. Whether it's Jamal Williams or Aaron Jones, this is now the 2nd week in a row where they have been able to make some big-time catches and be really effective in the receiving game. And what I'm seeing now is a balanced team. And while we did get away from the running game, we were able to close out the game at the very end of the 4th quarter by running it down their throats. Also, I love the risky play calling and not being conservative. On 3rd down when we needed 5 yards, we threw the ball. Aaron Jones was able to get it and get the 1st down, which wound up sealing the win. And so, like, these are the kind of things that you see that were different from McCarthy, where we would have taken a more conservative play calling approach. But this, I see a balanced offense right now who is going to just get better with time, with experience, and of course when Davante winds up coming back. The defense has been hit or miss. I think we would have probably let up more points with Patrick Mahomes under center. But, you know, with everything said and done, holding them to 24 points and holding all of those weapons, you know, considering what we did against the Raiders last week, you know, and the lack of weapons they had, I think we did a pretty good job against guys like Hill, Watkins, and of course, Kelsey. But overall, very good team win. We're able to kind of like rest up for a little bit until next week, and then we got the Chargers, which would basically just be like a big home game for us. But the Chargers are improving. They went into Soldier Field and won today, which, you know, doesn't really say much now, but, you know, we got to be careful of that team too. They do have a lot of offensive firepower, and we'll see what happens next week. But right now, if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, things are good. Things are good. No toaster bath tonight, and we make it another week. We've won 4 straight, and yeah, our future's looking pretty darn good in a very competitive NFC. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout out and thank you to all the Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. It really helps out the channel. But thank you so much for watching. It is currently 12:18 in the morning here on the East Coast. I'll see you tomorrow with some fresh new content. And as always, go Pack Go.